Hello friends and welcome. My name is Céline. How is everyone doing today? I know that I'm super grateful for aircon right now. If this is your first time here on my channel, hi, hello. It's great to have you. Thanks for being here. I make videos all about knitting, and you may also not know that this is not my usual setup. I'm actually back home in Italy visiting my parents, and last night I was rummaging through a wardrobe and I stumbled upon the very first knits I've ever made. I thought, perfect. What a great opportunity to look back through all these old knits and see whether or not my knitting has improved during the years. I started knitting in November 2020, which is almost 5 years ago. I'm really curious to know when you guys started knitting, so please leave a comment down below to let me know how long it's been. And while you're at it, also let me know what was the very first project you've ever knit. I'll start showing you mine. In all her glory, here's the Mousoni sweater by Goodnight Day. Ta-da! Listen, as a first knit, she's not half bad. I must admit, I was blessed with guidance from my knitting oracle, Stefania, who's also the knitting shura on Instagram. She taught me how to read my first pattern, and this is what came out of that. I remember this being such a lovely experience, just really calm, bump-free knitting time. Of course, I was so blessed to have Stefania right there on a video call to help me tackle all these new techniques. Let's put emphasis on the fact that this sweater only turned out as good as it did because I had Stefania's guidance through it all. I can't even imagine what this would have looked like if she hadn't been there on the video calls. She was actually the one to recommend I start with this pattern, and I think it was such a good recommendation because this is the ultimate simple sweater for beginners. It was the best introduction to top-down seamless circular knitting too. It sets you up really well for anything harder down the line. If I'm not mistaken, the body of the sweater is worked on 15mm needles, which means that I could experience instant gratification. I think it's essential for an extreme beginner to witness quick progress because long knitting times can be so discouraging. So a project like this is perfect because the gauge is ginormous, so it works up really fast, even if you're new to it and you're a little bit slow. Now let's look at the techniques and analyze how I executed them. So I cast on at the neck edge. This was my first time joining in the round. I didn't twist my stitches, which was great. Obviously, the first section is entirely in 1x1 rib, and the wrong side looks exactly the same to the right side. So I remember struggling to understand which one was the right side and which one was the wrong side. Sometimes I'd put the project down, and in the process of picking it back up, I would accidentally flip it inside out without noticing. So it really put my spatial awareness to the test, and I'm sure it must have given me at least one mental breakdown in the process. During hard knitting times like those, I did find a lot of support in Craftsy, who I'm super chuffed to be partnering up with for this video. Craftsy is an online community and resource for all things creative, where millions of crafters and makers and DIY enthusiasts find creative inspiration and advance their skills. The platform offers classes in popular categories like crochet, knitting, painting, photography, and more. I remember about half a year ago, I found a class that was kind of revolutionary for me. It was by Sun Meyer, titled Stranded Colorwork Basics and Beyond. So I thought that knitting a colorwork mitten was going to be the hardest challenge of my life, until I found that class. I learned how to read charts, put an afterthought thumb, make a jogless join, catch floats, like so many things. It gave me a lot of confidence, and it even tricked me into thinking that making a colorwork mitten was basically the most natural thing I've ever done. Craftsy also offers a bunch of knitting patterns. They constantly update the catalog as well to keep you coming back for more and help you stay inspired. As a member, you'll also have access to the live streaming tutorials where instructors engage with the Craftsy community in real time. So if any of you knitty friends are interested in joining Craftsy, the first 1,000 of you to click the link in my description box or scan this QR code on screen will get a full year of premium membership to Craftsy for only $1.49, and that's valid for new members only. Anyways, once I had finished the folded collar, I started experimenting with increases, make one rights and make one lefts, and for the life of me, I could not remember which one was which. So I remember having to constantly go back to the tutorial and watch it, which was kind of annoying, but we got it in the end. There are no German short rows in this pattern, so fortunately didn't have to venture into that yet. I think that might have been a little bit too confusing. And honestly, the double stitches that would have resulted from this super chunky yarn, I don't know if those would have been cute, you know? Generally speaking, I don't enjoy working with such huge yarn. It's just physically so heavy. On days where I'm feeling dramatic and my shoulders don't feel very strong, it might even give me back pain. The raglan looks relatively neat. There is a weird situation with the stitches here. I wonder if it's because I weaved in a new ball there. Yeah, that's a join that I weaved in weirdly, so the stitches look clunky and irregular. Let's look at the underarms. Oh dear. Could do with some improvement. I mean, I see what I was trying to do. Let's look at the other one. This one maybe looks a teeny weeny bit better. Here are the little balloon sleeves. I remember having such a hard time working out magic loop for this tiny circumference of a cuff. Of course, I had yet to learn about the beauties of Italian bind-off, so I resorted to a regular bind-off instead, and it has absolutely zero stretch. I don't even know if I can put my hand in. Oh, barely. Could potentially cut my circulation. I'm so tired from holding this up. Now, the main issue I see with the snit are the joins. Whenever I introduced a new skein of yarn, that section is so bulky. That's one bit where I joined. This is another one, and it is so thick, and you can see it on the right side. Ooh, I found another join. This is unspun yarn, so it would have been the perfect candidate for spit splicing, but of course I had no idea what that was, so I just stopped knitting with the old skein, started with the new one, and then later on weaved the two in. The yarn I used for this was Drops Polaris, which is 100% wool. I think it was a good yarn for me as a beginner because first of all, it's pretty cheap, so you don't feel bad spending a load of money on something that could potentially turn out not the greatest. Especially chunky yarn like this can be so expensive. Think We Are Knitters and Wool in the Gang style yarn. So it was nice to have a cheaper alternative that was still 100% wool. And as a first sweater, I'm happy about it. I don't wear this at all because the yarn is so heavy. It's just also so chunky and inconvenient. It doesn't fit inside a coat, so I don't really make any use out of it, but I will keep it because I'm emotionally attached to it. One never forgets their first knit. I think she deserves an 8 out of 10. In case you've never seen any of my recent knits, I'll put a video on screen where I show everything that I've knit in 2025 so far, so you can get an idea of what sort of thing I like to work on these days. It's really fun to compare my old knitting to my knits today. I think even just with this first piece, I see some improvement. Hopefully you guys can let me know. But I'm just also thinking all the sweat and tears that goes into learning how to knit. Us knitters really have to go through it, don't we? We gotta unravel, we gotta pick up drop stitches, work on the tension and the speed. Like, you really have to be a tough cookie to be a knitter. No, but really the first time I made a major mistake in my knitting about 4 years ago, I remember having to go out on the balcony to breathe some fresh air because I felt a mini panic attack coming. Fortunately, it didn't come, and I figured I was probably just overreacting. Now, as acceptable as my first knit was, my second one, this is her. Now, it may look fine, but you know, there's nothing like beginner's confidence. I self-drafted this. I basically used the first pattern that I showed you, did some math to work out ratios of how many stitches I should have for the front and the back and the sleeves and stuff like that, but there are just some things that didn't work. The first one being the fact that I used a larger needle to make the ribbing on the collar. Say I used a 5 on the body, I use like a 6.5 to do the ribbing, which in theory, that's not how it works. So we got this floppy mess out of that. It's also full of foundation, girl. Like, what was I doing with the sweater? Do you see the foundation drops? That's tragic. So since I used the other pattern as reference, the construction is exactly the same. There's no short row shaping or anything. It's just a simple raglan. This time the raglan is 2 stitches wide. That's the only difference. And of course, all the stitch counts are different. The underarms look better than the previous sweater, I think. We also have the most horrible non-stretchy bind off in the world. Girl. Is that pastel sugo or something? Like, how did I stain it so bad? I guess it was an okay experience for me to utilize the skills that I had learned with my first piece and apply them to create something different that's somewhat of my own, I guess. To be honest, I'm feeling kind of inspired by the beginner's confidence I had self-drafting this. I feel like these days, being a more experienced knitter, I can sometimes be a little bit fearful because I just know what can go wrong. When I made this one, I was oblivious and I had zero idea of how many things could go haywire. But it ended up serving me really well in understanding and applying the theory of construction that I had learned making the first sweater. Oh, actually, I remember now that I didn't do the regular bind off on the hem of the body. I couldn't tell you which one I used, but I did follow some tutorial for a stretchy bind off and it turned out a little bit flary. See how it swoops out on the side a little bit? She was experimenting. See, the thing that I really despise about this piece is the yarn. So this is Drops Air. I have other things made in Drops Air and those are actually like relatively okay and nice. I don't mind them too much. This one, I don't know what it is about it, but it just looks so cheap and yucky. The tension is not great, it's uneven, it pills. I have zero attachment to this piece, so I'm thinking I could give it a little bit of a makeover before donating it. Obviously giving it a good wash, but also dyeing it potentially like a dark blue or something, specifically to get rid of this big ugly stain down here. Then I could weave in an elastic through the collar and then I could redo the bind off at the cuff. All that would help me shape it up and it would make me feel better about donating it. But for now, I can't look at this any longer. It's just not a nice sight for my eyes. Actually, no, I have one more thing to say. Blocking this yarn stretched the sleeves to the sky. The sleeve is not meant to plop over the cuff like this. This exaggerated stretching because of blocking has happened to me before with Drops Air and also with a few Drops superwash yarns. So since then, I've been using the brand more selectively. I'll give this a 3 out of 10. The third sweater I've ever made is also knitted in Drops Air and it is the Aosta sweater by the Knit Pearl Girl. My experience with this yarn this time around was actually much better. Not like the most luxurious thing in the world, but definitely a good, cheaper option to have. As a beginner, it's quite nice finding yarns that are forgiving and help your tension look neater than it actually is. I don't think Drops Air is one of those. Worked in stockinette stitch, this yarn ruthlessly reveals if your tension is not absolutely pristine, but I think in a textured stitch pattern like this one, it's just more forgiving and an uneven tension blends in a little bit better. This sweater is knitted in all over Andalusian stitch, which is a 4-row repeat where the first 3 are knit rows and then the 4th is knit purl, knit purl. It is such a good beginner texture, I must say. It didn't overcomplicate things too much, especially since this construction is the same as the other 2 sweaters that I had tried before. So I was accustomed to that. It was my first time doing a double folded collar, which desperately calls for an elastic to be threaded through it right now because it's completely floppy. Girl, there are so many holes in this one. I don't know what I did. Hole number 1. Number 2, this one is so big it accounts for number 3, 4, and 5. Yet another hole here. I mean, they're not actual holes, but they're definitely the loosest stitches I've ever made. Also, what is up with these stains? Like, this doesn't happen to me anymore. There is like a little bit of a red stain. I wonder if it's from my hair dye. I used to dye my hair like a plum red. Also, do you want to see what I did? So this was the first time I did a modification. I really enjoyed the double folded collar. So I was like, I want to have a double folded hem. I knitted the ribbing, double the length, folded it, and sewed it down. Slanted. I guess your girl was too cool to sew it straight. Also, the way I sewed it down is so not stretchy. That's a very suspicious hole. Once again, zero stretch at the cuff. I'm realizing now how long it took me to just discover Italian bind-off. I remember really loving the fit of this sweater before I blocked it. And then the yarn completely lost all its shape on me and it just didn't look what it used to look like. Having it on now, I must say it's cuter than what I remembered. I was planning an intervention on this sweater. I was planning to give it a makeover and I started collecting all of the pits and skin from my avocados. I wanted to try dyeing it with that and I never did. I'm not sure how I feel about her, to be honest. I'm gonna give her a 5 out of 10. I thought it would be fun to include the first sample I made for my first ever pattern that I released because it's so horrible. Oh my gosh. It's a sack of potatoes. I think like 40% of the reason why I think it's horrible is because of the yarn that I used. This is Drops Wish. The stitch definition is nice, and I guess it also blocks out quite well, but as soon as you start wearing it, it peels like crazy. And it looks super worn out, like an hour in of you wearing it for the first time. This sweater is made with a saddle shoulder construction. The first increases are not made frequently enough, so it really bulges, and as you can see, it just swoops down too quick. The shoulder is meant to be more angular like this. It did help me experiment with the non-rolling stockinette edge. I remember I did try German short rows on this yarn, but the double stitches were so visible, it was crazy. I couldn't keep them, so I just did it without German short rows, and of course that gives me issues when I wear it because it just like bulges and hits my chin, and it's just, she's just not doing it for me. She's not flattering on, but hopefully that shows you what designing for the first time can look like. It really was my first time translating a design idea I had in my head into an actual proper pattern with steps, instructions, and techniques. It's a muscle you have to train when designing, which is why starting out with a more simple piece with fewer frills like this one can ease you into it quite nicely. I guess as much as I don't enjoy this piece, it did really help me set things straight and understand perfectly what I needed to change and do to bring my Winnie vision to life. So I guess I'm grateful for the sweater, but I'm still gonna give it a 4 out of 10. I know we're all knitters here, but I also do have the first crochet pieces I've ever made. So let's look at them as well, shall we? This is the very first thing I've ever made with crochet. And you can tell. I started crocheting before I started knitting, actually. It was literally in the summer of 2020. Oh, it was so new to me and I was so excited about this. I remember feeling so proud of myself finishing this. I made this during full-on lockdown. I remember ordering this yarn on the phone. Like, I called the lady and I said, I would like some cotton that I can work on a 4mm hook, and I want it to be white. Good times. It's got another stain. I don't know what it is with these old pieces and stains. But I guess the other thing is that I misjudged, miscalculated, and mismeasured. The panels ended up being too narrow and it didn't fit me. I had to improvise. And I added these vertical stitches down the sides of the body, and it's just not a look. There is one thing that I do enjoy, and it's the color combination. I think this white and this undertone is really beautiful, paired with this little pink trim. I would do it again. I made this following a YouTube tutorial that I'll link down below. If I remember correctly, the girl from that channel is called Emma, and I give her a 10 out of 10. She was such a good crochet teacher. I basically learned how to crochet from her. Tension isn't great, it's quite gappy. It looks very homemade, which I guess has its charm, but I just would not wear this out because it would be just so obvious that I made it, and not in a good way. I'm also just noticing that this panel is longer than this one, which is pretty funny. I do feel emotionally attached to this, however. There's just something so endearing about it, and I love the colors. I must recreate. I just vividly remember how it made me feel when I finished it, and when I tried it on, I thought it was so cute. So I'm not getting rid of her. She's one I'm gonna keep. Because of that, I'm gonna give her a 6.5 out of 10. This next one is way neater. This is the Jasmine top by Off the Hook. It's a pretty simple pattern. So you start by working a tube and then weaving in a crochet chain to scrunch up the front here. The hem is finished off with some beautiful scalloped edging. The incredible thing about this piece are the cap sleeves. Hello, they are so cute. I love it. If I were to make it again, I would try and work out a way to make this tube section a little bit more body fitting and just like flow with the natural shape of my body a little bit more harmoniously, because now it's just kind of a little bit of a tube and the shaping is not like spot on and super tailored. Other than that, I'm into it. I think it's cute. I love this color. This is Drops Cotton Light. Something that I really appreciate about this design that I sometimes struggle finding in other crochet tops and designs is that the fabric is not super stiff. It has some drape and it is relatively soft, which is quite nice. I'm not the biggest fan when a crochet top is worked in a stitch that makes the fabric super thick and stiff. Drape and comfort are very important elements to me, and sometimes crochet struggles to hit the mark in those two categories, but I feel like this top is not stiff and is quite comfy. Obviously the cap sleeves have more structure, but I think it really works for this section of the top. So yeah, I think I'd give this a 6 out of 10. Last crochet piece. This was my third one I've ever made, and I was so proud of this one. I think this is called the Ophelia top by Mermaid's Yarns. Mermaid's Yarns, my favorite crochet designer. This is her. She's actually kind of stunning. First of all, the stitch is majestic. This scrunchy situation at the front gives the top such a beautiful shape. It is a corset top, so it fits and hugs the body perfectly. The only thing is I made these back panels a little bit too long, so they touch in the middle and they don't really show the crisscross of the chain, which is sad because it's a nice decorative element. But see, this is one example where I actually like the structured look of the crochet stitch. This is not necessarily super flowy. It is quite bulky, but it just works with this pattern. It's perfect for the stitch. It's perfect for this yarn. It's perfect for this fit, the cut, everything. I would totally make this again, perhaps in white, black, red, or like a super bright forest green. I'm gonna give this a 9 out of 10. And those were all the knits and crochet pieces I found at my parents' house. That was really interesting. I had a lovely time seeing where I was at the beginning of my knitting journey. Also, so cool how holding these pieces in hand today, I remember exactly my thoughts and what I was thinking while making them. That's crazy. I love how knitting holds memory like this. It's very, very magical and special, and a big part of why I love the craft so much. My knit pieces feel like timestamps of my life, like little journal entries, and I pick one up and this movie of what my life used to look like at the time of making them just starts playing so vividly in my head, and that says a lot because I have the memory of a goldfish. So yeah, I just think that's so cool. I'm so glad I persevered and pursued this craft in these last years. I'm really happy to have learned a lot, and I'm very excited to keep learning. And although I've given some of the pieces a low rating, I will not deny that I wouldn't be here today without them. I'd love to hear if you guys have any fond memories tied to knitting. Of course, also let me know what's currently on your needles because I'm super curious as always. In the meantime, I'll thank you so much for sticking till the end of this video. I really appreciate the company, and I'll leave my Instagram on screen in case you'd like to follow my creations more in real time and hang out on there. I will say bye for now, and I hope to see you in my next video.